It is Sunday, April 14th, 2024. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. There's always lots of weather going on in this country, but to know where to begin, you don't have to look any further than to see the anniversary of April 14th of a phenomenal dust storm called Black Sunday back in 1935. Looking at the weather map for today, tomorrow, and into Tuesday, we'll see the development of a possible dust storm, several areas of widespread blowing dust possible for tomorrow, but especially on Tuesday. In fact, if we don't see blowing dust, one has to wonder which ingredient is missing. The soil moisture is at 0% over portions of Colorado, Kansas, even parts of Oklahoma and New Mexico, and the winds are expected to be sustained to levels that just, it's hard to believe people are even living in these places, but we have sustained winds to 30 to 45 miles per hour with much higher gusts headed for that area on Tuesday. So blowing dust can be expected, possibly even an all-day event. We have not seen, for the most part, you will not see the National Weather Service discuss storm, the word dust storm, but that's only for the most part. There is, perhaps it's, I don't think it is Dodge City, Kansas. I think it's Goodland, Kansas. One of those National Weather Services does make mention briefly of a possible dust storm, or at least blowing dust. That's something that could be expected on Tuesday. It kind of depends what type of precipitation falls Monday night, but it kind of doesn't, because the air mass coming in is very dry, very windy. The evaporation rate's going to be real high. Let's get back to today. Today's Sunday, April 14th. We saw some phenomenal heat. The word phenomenal perhaps could be replaced with a different word if you want, but very hot temperatures for this time of the year occurred, especially in Kansas, where some towns got up to 96 degrees. It also occurred, the area that got 96 degrees, it occurred really late in the day. The temperature was 95, and then at the last minute, temperature went up to 96 degrees. Nebraska went into the low 90s today. Kansas, we had many locations in the lower and mid 90s, so we did have record heat occur in Kansas. This heat is going to help contribute. It's going to be the fuel behind some severe thunderstorm, certainly potential by tomorrow afternoon, but especially tomorrow night. Now, tomorrow we do have southeast winds, which will start to bring in more moisture. That's going to keep the temperatures a little bit down for tomorrow. Highs only in the mid-80s, but low 90s are expected as well. Mid-80s to low 90s. You'll probably have a few isolated spots of the mid-90s. The big question that the National Weather Service is struggling with is where exactly is the dry line going to set up? The two scenarios are either the dry line gets set up on the Colorado-Kansas border, or it moves into central Kansas, and that's going to determine exactly when and where the thunderstorms, what will be happening, and stuff like that. What we have going on unique for tomorrow night in the plains is, this is unique, not very unique, but the tornado outbreak is expected to occur at night. For the plains, these thunderstorm complexes develop usually in the afternoon, and by night, it's already in Louisiana. So those places that have to deal with nighttime tornadoes, usually it's the south central states, but tomorrow we have the plains being the main area. The main tornado activity will be occurring at night and not in the afternoon. That's something unique for the plains. That's again for tomorrow night. What that also does is it means that the complex, the thunderstorm complex, moves towards the Chicago area, perhaps during peak heating on Tuesday, which actually puts these parts of the country into a higher than usual chance for severe weather. What we mentioned, we spoke about the dry front happening for tomorrow. That's when you have the southeast winds colliding with southwest winds. Southeast winds bringing in the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Southwest winds bringing in the desert, the dew points in the 20s versus dew points in the 50s, and even dew points in the 60s. We also have a Pacific cold front, a Pacific front bringing in some very dry air, which is associated with the system, perhaps moving in about maybe 6 hours after the dry front. That would be for Monday night. That would also be the main focus of thunderstorm activity. On Tuesday, the winds are just very intense. When we look at the European computer model for Colorado, you'll see sustained winds past 40 miles per hour with wind gusts 60 and 70 miles per hour. This is an area where there's a lot of dust. We've seen some really intense dust storms so far this year. We saw one in February. We saw another one about a month later. We're perhaps going to see one this week in April. And this is the time of the year when these dust storms start. Last year we saw a surprise, intense, hazardous dust storm in Illinois around May 1st. And again, April 14th is the anniversary for the worst dust storm in American history. And you could read all about that somewhere from the National Weather Service in Kansas, or you could just somewhere in the National Weather Service website. You could read all about that dust storm. It has it's descriptive, going from the weather synopsis, also has all the imagery, and it's really quite amazing how the visibility actually became as dark as night in these places that got that dust storm. It was on a Sunday, just like this year's on a Sunday. Later in the week, we do have some colder air moving into the Midwest, but temperatures warm up after that. That's all we have to say. We know there's a lot more, but you could always stay in touch with the National Weather Service to get your latest forecast. You've been listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This podcast can be found on almost every platform where podcasts are available.